I knew right off the bat that I needed to get to Europe as quickly as possible. The repertoire that's available for someone of my age who sings the kind of rep that I sing is actually done fairly frequently in Europe. It's just not, the roles that come to mind are things like Def Highschutz, which is sort of a young German tenor role. It's almost never done in the US, though. But then it introduces a new problem, which is you're in a place that does a lot of the more mature rep and says, oh, do you want to do X role? That's too soon.
Well, I'm more of the slow and steady wins the race approach. I tend to err on the cautious side. I would love to go to Europe, and I look forward to going to Europe someday, but I've always kind of dragged my feet about it because of that very reason, and being very hesitant to sort of like be offered things that like I want to do, but I don't want to do yet.
That's sort of, for me, that's one of the things that keeps me in, is that I've made so many great relationships and friendships in this business. And I love the chance to work with people. And so when I was talking to Ian about having someone come on, he mentioned you, Ali, and said that you guys would be a good team. So can you guys tell us a little bit about your relationship and how in the context of this crazy industry that we're all part of?
So Ian and I met at Wolf Trap in 2019. We were doing Ariadne of Naxos, and I was Ariadne, and he was Bacchus. And
so some light singing.
We totally,
it's a nice,
super light. But no, it was great because we just sort of like very quickly bonded, and it's been so nice because now this is our second summer doing things together. I mean, we were supposed to do something. We were supposed to be here last summer doing Wagner's Die Feen. That didn't happen, but it's always nice to like find somebody who understands you get along with, and then you get to like, see each other down the road and like continue to collaborate and continue to work and, continue to foster your friendship as well as your professional relationship.
You guys hit it off pretty quick. Do you find that that's sort of the nature of the way we sort of operate in our business? Is that you do have to make really fast friendships. Otherwise, you're just alone all the time because we don't have like years and years to get to know someone. And we're doing things that are often pretty intimate on stage with each other. So it sort of breaks down the barriers and you're able to make these sort of things happen like that.
Absolutely.
No, I totally agree. Yeah.
I mean, it's wild. Like what we do is so strange, right? Like,
it's the weirdest.
We show up at a place and hi. Good day. Hello, I'm Allie. And then like a week later, 100%. And then like literally a week later, it's like, cool. All right, I guess we're making out. That's totally wild. But
did you find like
totally professionally
after during the pandemic, we were so conscious about aerosols and washing our hands and all that stuff. And the whole time during the pandemic, all I could think about was all the times I spit directly into somebody else's mouth. I was like, how are we going to keep doing this?
Right. I mean, and not even, you're just constantly like, I think about it too, like the whole first row, the splash zone, the orchestra pit. I mean, like
those
just
poor people
spraying aerosol.
Not even unintentionally. It's not even just the moments where you're supposed to kiss or whatnot. I can't tell you how many times I'm like, oh, I accidentally hocked an enormous loogie there.
That's really substantial amount of moisture on that person's forehead. They're going to have to nonchalantly be like, work it into a gesture. Oh.
Absolutely.
The last gig I did before the pandemic was Iphigenie and Tauride. And they had me up in a balcony singing Toas. And like, I was just in this balcony over the audience. And I had like a spotlight on me and I could see everything. Just all of the rain and all those poor old German ladies that were down below me. I felt so bad.
Oh, yeah.
I should have wore a mask.
You're right.
So you guys met in at Wolf Trap.
Yep.
Yeah. And how were you like, I'm not 100% familiar with that program, but was it like, were you guys young artists or principal artists or how was that? I'm not sure how it works there.
It's an interesting thing. They have two levels at Wolf Trap, the studio artists and the fleeing artists. And you could call that a distinction between a young artist and guest artist, but the entire program is, both of them are guided toward younger singers.
Yeah.
So, and actually there is sometimes some age overlap. So the studio artists tend to be in grad school age, roughly, sort of 22 to 26.
Yeah.
And then the Feline artists tend to be kind of 25 to 30, 25 to 32.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we were Feline artists in the sense that we were sort of principal artists, but we were
the old farts.
Everyone who's there as a principal artist is young.
Now you know how we feel being old people. Like, hey kids, back in my day, we used to didn't have voice teachers. We just had to find somebody we liked that sang and follow them around all day.
Amen.
You know?
Amen.
Wolf Trap, I've always heard really good things about the sort of support that they have for their artists. Like it doesn't end from what I've heard that the support that the organization puts behind the people that it brings in doesn't end when the contract's over.
Definitely not. No, I mean, I'm still based in DC, so I've gone and done a few things here and there, and during the pandemic did a really cool project for them. But it's a really special place. I mean, we can say that about most companies, right? Oh, it's a very special place. But
it's a family.
But right, exactly.
Family, you know?
It's exactly.
It's family honor.
Right. Wolf Trap's a really cool place, and I mean, it's nice because, especially the Feline artists, yes, you're still a young artist, but they really try to give you the principal experience. It's a really safe place to like go do your first Ariadne and your first Baku's in a place where it's like, hey, we're going to treat you like you'll be treated someday, but there's still the safety net here.
Right.
And then they support you well after your time, and in the years following, for all. It's an amazing institution. And it was a great place for us to meet. And
well, you're both relatively young, but your singing repertoire that people often say, well, you're too young for that. I'm sure you probably have gotten that a lot. People just, it's when they have nothing to say left, they go, well, you're just too young.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I think it's important that companies sort of support those kinds of voices when they're young, because oftentimes it really is a waiting game. You may have all the tools, but just no one's willing to put you in the game quite yet until they get some sort of stamp of approval.
Exactly.
What's that been like for you guys to have to is it a constant source of stress, or are you just sort of like, I'm just going to let it off my shoulders and keep doing what I'm doing until it's time to do it?
No, it's a fair point. I think for me, I knew right off the bat that I needed to get to Europe as quickly as possible, because and I think going to your point, the repertoire that's available for someone of my age who sings the kind of rep that I sing is actually done fairly frequently in Europe. It's just not, the roles that come to mind are things like Jeff Heischutz, which is sort of a young German tenor role. It's almost never done in the U.S. though. So whereas I can't tell you how many times I've sort of been humming the tune to the tenor aria in that show, and some random dude in Austria or Germany just starts, starts singing to you with no background in opera. It's really beloved there. So I knew that I had to get there as quickly as possible. And so, that saved me to some extent, but then it introduces a new problem, which is you're in a place that does a lot of the more mature rep and says, do you want to do X role? That's too soon. Yeah. So it just introduces the flip side problem of now people are starting to offer stuff that is genuinely too soon.
Know that game.
Yeah, exactly. Just a new game.
Uh-huh. Well, I'm more of the slow and steady wins the race approach. And that's totally very self-imposed, I think, for me. I tend to err on the cautious side. I would love to go to Europe, and I look forward to going to Europe someday, but I've always kind of dragged my feet about it because of that very reason, and being very hesitant to sort of be offered things that I want to do, but I don't want to do yet. I feel like
I used to say I didn't get in the opera to sing fucking Papageno. I just didn't. I had a teacher tell me, I was 29. She was like, "You have a small, colorless voice. The biggest role you'll ever sing is Papageno." And I was like, "Well, then I quit."
Okay, bye.
Because I'm just not doing that for the rest of my life.
No.
So all these beautiful gems that we see just out of reach, man. It's so you want to jump and grab them as soon as you can, but I understand
Yeah.
what you're talking about there.
Oh yeah, no. And yeah, the stamp of approval thing is totally real.
Yeah.
Like, and that was hard for me at the beginning of my, getting to where I am. It was, I did went to school, got my master's, and then it was like, okay, let's try some young artist auditions. And it was like, oh, okay, nope, 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 rejection, rejection, rejection. And it wasn't until like one company takes a chance on you, and then all of a sudden they're all like, okay, great, yeah. Let's hire you. I'm like,
I have a similar thing.
Whatever.
I didn't hit my stride till I was like 35, 37, somewhere in there. And for years, I mean, my voice is not that different. I mean, it's a little fuller and a little bigger and whatever, but it wasn't that different. But the thing that my breakout role was Dead Man. And then what was great was that, like, these producers would say, well, if you can do that guy, he'd probably be a pretty good Scarpia, or he'd probably be a pretty good Rigoletto.
Totally.
Or Jack Rance. And that's how I got to do all, my gateway into opera was, or into this repertoire was modern rep, which is really weird. But that's how I got and I had to get that stamp of approval. And once I got it, then, things, dominoes kind of fall. But man, it really is like it's no fault. I mean, it's just the way that it is. It's a system. It's just the way things work. But it seems a little bit lemming-like behavior. Oh, they went that way? Okay, now we can.
Right.
Totally.
Exactly.
It's
totally wild.
To go back to the question you asked at the beginning, Michael, I was just thinking about, sort of friendships in opera, particularly during COVID time. And I have to admit, I'm incredibly grateful, because I think a lot of the friendships that we developed in opera companies over the years are friendships that we're able to pick up as if we never left them, which I love.
I have so many friends like that.
Yeah, and I got super lucky. I was stuck in Chicago for most of the pandemic. And I got super lucky that my very first paying opera gig was Des Moines Metro Opera Yak.
Yeah.
Right out of undergrad.
I love that.
And I became friends with two different people there, both of them singers, Zach Owen and Josh Weaker, who happened to also be in Chicago at the time. So I got very, very lucky in the sense that I was never utterly alone, even during the pandemic, and I was able to sort of, people who I frankly didn't see that often, but because we happened to be in the same place at the same time, we were still able to hang out outdoors for a lot of the pandemic. And it was really a godsend that I wouldn't have had, but for the fact that I was traveling around as a singer and making a lot of these friendships that I might lose for a certain period of time, but then pick up easily later. Yeah. So I love that.
Yeah, one of my buddies, Eric Green, is fantastic baritone. Just a beautiful statue of a man. Like, I swear to God, like, I've never felt small in my life. I'm not a small guy, but the last time I saw him, he picked me. He's like 6'4", 6'5", and just muscles on top of muscles, and he just swooped me up in his arms like a little baby, and I was like, oh goodness, I feel so small. It's nice.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of relationship we have. We could go, a year and not talk, not even catch up. But you pick the phone up and it's like, well, we never left. We never stopped talking.
Yeah. It's such a wild thing, and that's like, I'm sure we can all appreciate too, that strange dichotomy of like, we do this weird thing and we're surrounded by our families who are probably living normal lives. And like the majority of people in this world who live rather stationary lives. And yet here we have friends all over the world, all over the country, and you'll go years without seeing somebody. And then it's just like, oh yeah, boom, there's this person. Let's be best friends for 3 months again, and then still knowing that they're always there. It's such a strange and kind of amazing and special thing to be able to have that experience, in addition to having like the stability of family and people like that too. That dichotomy is so fascinating. One
of the coolest things, like, I've been in this business about 25 years, and one of the cool things about it is when you're coming up with people like guys I knew when I was y'all's age, that ended up pivoting to a different part of the business. And so it really does speak to that thing, like, be nice to everybody, because you never know who your boss is going to be. And there's so many singers that go into admin, and like I've like, I mean, I'm a pretty spicy dude sometimes, and like, it's like, oh, What did I say? Nope. Okay, we're good. We're good. Fine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was just thinking about that today because the oh God, I'm gonna mess up her title, but I think she's the social media, the person in charge of all the social media for Dallas Opera. I taught her oral skills back in undergrad.
Is that Annie Penner?
Annie, yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
love Annie, and I know Andrew from Wolf Trap too.
Oh, that's wild. Yeah, because her
Yeah, yeah,
husband's a singer too.
yeah. But Annie and I were in undergrad together, and I was
Dude, she is so good at her
yeah.
job. I mean, she'll watch this, so she'll know. But she is
Oh yeah,
so
she's great.
fantastic at her job.
She's
Man.
fantastic.
I love to see somebody flourish when they make a change like that.
Right? Come on.
Yeah.
You know, one thing like being what I love doing these programs like Central City and in Des Moines and Santa Fe and stuff is that we tend to like get all haggard and love to tell our war stories and stuff. And being in Gen X and sort of being raised by the boomers and stuff and having to sort of break a trail through that morass of crazy stuff. And my generation was much more sort of like, just go along to get along. Just wear the suit. Don't cause any trouble. People would ruin your career and all this stuff. And one of the things I've noticed with people like in their 20s now is that they're much less willing to accept this kind of stuff. And there's a lot of hunger in that group of folks that we change some things about our business to make it, just a safer place, I think is kind of what we're trying to. And from your perspective, when you're looking at the way you want your career to look like in the next 20, 25, 30 years, what are some of the changes that you see that are happening or some that you don't think have happened and need to happen that you would like to see happen in the next, 10, because these changes it'll take your entire generation. That's one of the things we forget about how change happens. It doesn't happen fast. It happens slow. It'll take the course of your career to see the things that you want now affected. So what are some of those things for you guys that you would like to see some change happen from the bottom of the pyramid as opposed to waiting for people at the top to do it?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's interesting that I don't know if you feel this way, Ian, but coming up with teachers who are probably of that generation, right? That sort of boomery generation who came from that world of like, your dress must be below your knees. You must wear closed-toed shoes and hose and blah, 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 blah. And your hair cannot be fun colors and like all of that ruling. And then to see this, like the next generations of singers below us who are like, I have tattoos all over my body and my hair is crazy colors and I'm wearing pants to my audition. And it's so weird to sort of be straddling those two worlds a little bit, maybe more. And to see that change happening, I think is amazing. To see the acceptance and like, I'm not going to live my life in a way that isn't authentic to me simply because these rules are arbitrary.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to present myself the way that is most authentic to me.
Yeah.
And if that means I dye my hair purple, cool. If that means I, have a full sleeve of tattoos, amazing. Like I just think it's really cool that people are feeling more able to express themselves the way they want to. I think there's still lots of change and lots of room for more acceptance and more growth in that way. I would love to see more change and more, acceptance of different types of diversity on stage, whether that be, body type, body size, different, all kinds of different people, race and gender expression. Like, I think, why does it matter? Well, life is that way, right? Life is that way.
Like I hear, and it goes, it's when you talk about it in the sort of the context of like the way you present yourself is part of your personal artistic expression. And what makes, artists interesting is the fact that you can kind of tell who they are, right? And all through like my generation, the whole thing was towards homogeneity. Like everybody had to look the same. And like you were wearing like a uniform, an opera uniform. And seeing that, policing people's personal expression definitely has roots and racism and fat shaming and body shaming and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's all kind of wrapped into the same issue to me. It's like it's important for us to be interesting. I mean, these people that are in our audiences, they go to the office every day. They see people in suits and ties and looking like they're at the Tucker Carlson fan club. But, they don't want to go to the theater and see that.
No.
Cheryl Mills once said, "I never wear a tuxedo to the party." People said, "Why?" And he was like, because I don't want to look like them. I want them to be able to find me in a crowd.
I didn't know that quote. That's kind of cool.
No, that's fascinating. I love that.
So long as we're like, creating a Santa's list of things we'd like to see the opera world turn into.
Yeah, right.
I'm going to ask Santa for something that is probably less likely than what Allie asked for. But I would love to see, not necessarily a full adoption of the German, public funded funding of opera, because I don't think that's frankly likely, particularly at the federal level. But I do think that there are more individual examples of what happens in Germany and other countries in Europe that is much more feasible. So just from my own personal knowledge, the Frankfurt Opera is in Germany is actually not federally funded. It's not a Staatsoper, but it's funded by a municipal tax where the city of Frankfurt said, "Hey, this is something we value. We're going to pay for it ourselves." And I do think that that's something that's possible in the U.S., that a city or a state would say, "Yeah, we want to support this. We want to be a part of the creation of new American opera." I mean, hell, or just say, we believe in these X opera houses that we have in the state. We're going to make an investment in them.
Well, I think
that's something
right?
that's
like professional sports. That's exactly what they do.
Yeah,
because they're
exactly.
We're not the kind of economic drivers that, say, a football team is, but we're still a significant economic driver in any major metropolitan area.
Mm-hmm. And not just in singers. I mean, set designers.
Everybody you bring in. The tourist dollars, people coming to see the shows, people coming in from the suburbs. All of your artists that come into town and have to rent an apartment, buy groceries. They spend their money while they're there. How do you feel about, the fest idea? Like Atlanta, we did a little bit of like a mini American Fest for like 9 months.
Mm-hmm.
And I really loved it. I really loved it. Working with the same people, seeing the same people in the audience every time. And you sort of develop this sort of like local sports team sort of feeling,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That was in Europe. Do you notice that when you're there, that some of the people that are in the ensemble are like local favorites. People love them in town.
Oh, totally. And even within various cities in Europe, I love the feeling. There are a couple of magazines that'll do like Opera House of the Year crap. I don't think people really care that much, but I actually kind of love that they exist, because you develop this sense of, this is what Frankfurt does, this is what Berlin does, this is what Vienna does.
Yeah.
And, who cares if there are snobs in any of these cities who's like, only Vienna knows how to do opera right. There are lots of those people who think that. But at the end of the day, who cares? It really only helps everyone.
Yeah.
That there are these people, I personally think that, some of the YouTube singing experts are kind of ridiculous at times, but I'm kind of glad they exist.
This
right?
is opera. Those guys.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm glad they exist, because that's indicative. That's indicative of a kind of enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Of sort of sports like
people get upset about it, and I'm like, hey, let them talk.
Great, you're wrong, but who cares?
It's better than not being talked about.
Yeah.
Amen. But I think I'm sure Ian, you did too, because, you were a Lindemann Young Artist, and I just, in March of 2020 or May of 2020, a great time to finish your Young Artist tenure.
Worlds of opportunity.
Amazing. Wow. Yes, really and truly. So I finished up 3 years at Washington National Opera as a K. Fritz Young Artist, and the amazing relationships that you develop with the community. Like you have your donor friends, you have your patrons, and it's so cool to be able to have the experience of being stable and being stationary for a few years and being able to develop those relationships, and then like be able to come to Glimmerglass multiple times and have your Glimmerglass family and have your Wolf Trap family. And it's so special. And it's, again, it's like relationships within, you know, with colleagues in the business, but then you also have your audience family too, right? Like I know that there are donors that are like Glimmerglass donors, but also Washington National Opera donors that are coming up this weekend. And especially through the pandemic, when little events would happen outside and it was like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen you in 6 months. And I used to see you every other week. And to just be like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy to see you. I'm so happy to see you and connect with you. And how are you? And feel that sense of normalcy of like, oh, these are people in my life that care about me and the art that I make. And we all love this art form. And we're all like family, you know? It's just so funny to be like, I don't sing on stage with you, but you're always in the audience and I can always tell when you're there. And I always know that you're there supporting me and my colleagues in it. It's just, that's really special too. Yeah.
It's always funny to me, like, one of the guests I haven't been able to get on the show is because donors are, I mean, we don't realize that these people, they have, a lot of times they have jobs, they have like other lives, and then they dedicate all this time to like board meetings and all this stuff. Plus they're making a huge donation, sometimes in the millions of dollars every year. And it's like, what kind of like, it's like, are we like stamp collections? I mean, like, do you have, like, you must be, you have such a passion for what I do. Like, there is nothing in my life that I love enough, like that's a hobby of mine, that I would just donate significant portions of my income to ensure that it exists. You know, but these guys, I mean, it's really incredible what they do. I mean, we sort of like, we give the 1% donors a hard time sometimes, but really it's pretty miraculous that opera even exists in this country.
Yeah, and in our private sponsorship model, which, you know, it's not my favorite, but that's what we have. The only reason that we exist at all is because of those people. It's kind of incredible.
It's one of the things that I always find weird when people try to compare opera to like theater or for-profit theater and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. But, you know, we don't make any money on this. I mean, like, tickets make up 20% of our budget. So, you know, you have to think of it differently. Like, it's not like when I'm looking at money that I get paid, I look at it as like it's borrowed money. It's like somebody else's, like it's almost a different kind of feeling of responsibility when you're performing, because you're like, I'm not the audience, and I'm not taking a portion of the house receipts, and they're not banking on the fact that Mike Mays is here, so it's going to pack the house because no one knows who the fuck I am. So it's about the piece and the company and the art form. It's a much more sort of holistic thing than just sort of like, it's me. Hello, everyone. It's me. I'm here.
Right.
Oh, there must be a line around the block to come see to the 37th Tosca.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but I think that takes the pressure off of it too a little bit, right? Yeah. Like knowing that like you are not carrying the weight of that a lot. Like that's the nice thing about being an opera singer is like I go to the theater, you're like famous for 5 seconds and then everyone forgets about it. In a good way. In a good way.
Right.
Like I don't have to worry about the paparazzi out here in Cooperstown, New York following me around. Like and yeah, like you get a taste of it and then you get to go home to your normal life and be just you. And I think
it's harder for me in Europe because I'm so American. Like I look like a red, white, and blue flag just wherever I go. I can't help it. It's just the way I dress, you know.
Right.
And I was in Spain doing Dead Man Walking, and I had crazy. I always have some weird facial hair for that, you know. And this time it was like this long, like handlebar mustache that came down here and was like long. And people started calling me. People started calling me Senor Bigote. That's Mr. Mustache. And if people would, I mean, out in the street, Senor Bigote. And I would bump into people that would see, like, because I was on the cover of a paper, ABC there. And so the people in the street would recognize you. Yeah. And while it was a little disconcerting, because I've just never been recognized before, it was really like heartening to me, sort of the diaspora of people that I encountered, which like it would be like a cab driver or the guy at the newsstand, or I was at a museum and somebody just like stopped me and talked about the show because it was Dead Man, so it never seen anything like that. They were like, "What the heck's going on with that?"
Right.
And I really like the fact that everybody knows. You know, like here when you say you get into a cab and they ask you what you do, and you say I'm an opera singer, and then you have to just go through a whole treatise about what that even means because no one has an idea.
So true. Oh my gosh.
I'm an opera singer. This is going to be a long conversation. I'm just letting you know.
Yeah.
What I do is sing, and then people pay me.
Yeah, sing super loud, no microphones.
Right. Yeah.
Did y'all's families, like when you like, did you come from a musical families? Did you have a lot of support for that, or was it like, well, we got this unicorn in our family, I guess we're just going to go with it?
Yeah. I did sort of. I mean, my family liked music a lot, but I think the big thing for me was that I went to a Waldorf school, which took music super seriously, and I had a couple of early teachers who, you know, my family wasn't really able to afford tickets to an opera, but there was a family there. The mom was the orchestral director, and she lived we were pretty far out from the city at that point, and they lived much closer to the city, and literally, you know, forked over $50 for me to take me to the opera. My first show was Cunning Little Vixen at the Lyric. I actually went and saw Pirates of Penzance before that, but that's sort of.
So you were from the Chicago area?
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I remember going into her, Monica was her name. She took me into Chevy Suburban, her enormous, because she had 4 kids, and I mean, she still has 4 kids. They're all alive.
She had 4 kids, sadly.
At like age 6, she played a recording of I think the first opera recording. It isn't even an opera. Was Anna Moffo singing the Rachmaninoff Vocalies. First recording I'd ever heard. And I was maybe 5 or 6 at the time, you know? So while my family at home wasn't terribly musical, they were very supportive of an extremely lucky thing that I had, which was just incredible teachers from the off, you know?
Yeah.
Just luck.
How about you, Allie? Did you break the mold when you came out?
Oh, most definitely. In so many ways. So like my grandmother sings a little bit in church and, you know, like that whole thing. And I, you know, had a music teacher who was like, she can sing. And my mom was like, yeah, no, for sure. Cool. And sang at church growing up, you know, that whole thing. But like any good girl from the Midwest, I wanted to do musical theater. So
was that your first love? Was that like when you really
100%.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, the best. And so being able to sing some this summer is like my dream come true.
What was your show when you were a kid? What was your show you had?
Oh my God. I was like obsessed with Les Mis for a long time.
So it must be heaven for you this time.
Oh, it truly is. And I mean,
one day more.
Hello, Dolly is one of my favorite movies of all time. So like, I'm just hitting all my favorites this summer. But no, so I wanted to do musical theater. My family was like, okay, like maybe education. I was like, I don't know, probably not. And so I had a voice teacher who was really great in sort of encouraging me to just do whatever that meant. Like, she's like, I don't think you need a fallback. I think you should just go for it. And she was the first person to be like, here's an aria. I was like, what is this? And I just totally fell madly in love with it.
Weird
you
Spanish
know,
words
like
you got written down here. Well, it's not Spanish.
Exactly. And you know, I grew up in like the suburbs of Detroit, but you know, not being in in the same sort of Chicago environment.
Yeah.
My first opera was a Met broadcast. I went to see Aida. And I remember my teacher being like, what did you think? And I was like, oh, it was good. I liked it. She's like, do you think you'll sing that someday? I was like, I don't know. Yeah. And then the next week I went and saw Turandot and I was like, that one.
That's the one I want to do.
That's the one. Hi. Ice Princess cutting heads off. That's me. Hi, hello. I would like to do that one, please.
I want to be in that big puke-scented pearl, that Bliss. You guys ever seen that Bliss Hebrew
100%
with the big pearl that she comes out of? It's like a dragon and he's got a claw. The whole thing's this big dragon. There's a claw and there's a big pearl in it. It's a big plastic, like
Oh my
1980s
God.
constructed pearl. I think the
100%.
first lady that did it booted inside that pearl, and it's just never not smelled like beauty.
I actually wanted to ask. I wanted to ask Allie because I remember we're basically the same age, but when I was middle school age, it was sort of the beginning of the Wicked explosion. Was
Oh
that
yeah, no, I was big,
case?
huge fan of Wicked. Oh,
Oh,
I wanted to
You
be
were in
Elphaba.
middle
Are you
school, and
kidding me?
that thing seems like to me it happened like a week ago, but
Yeah.
it's like an old show
Was it
now.
seventh grade?
No,
I
I
think
was.
that came out.
Oh
Sixth grade?
God. I mean, I remember being like totally obsessed with it in high school. So yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh yeah. No, I was all about all of that nonsense. But yeah, so then I like was like, "Hey, mom and dad, I want to do opera," and they were like,
Oh no!
"Okay." I mean, and they're very
What's
supportive,
opera?
and yeah,
Again, well,
and
we've had this
so.
conversation.
And so, you know, all the stuff that they've come and seen and experienced, I'm like, thanks.
Sorry,
And
it's
they're
4
coming up
hours.
this weekend. I know, right? And they're coming up to Glimmerglass for the first time this weekend, and I'm like really excited. And you know, so I think we'll be their first real Wagner. Yeah, I mean, like with the exception of like an aria here or there,
Yeah.
but like, whew, I'll be interested. Be interested to be like, welcome. Here's some very heavy German. Here we go.
Bring a hat. It's going to get hot.
And we'll chase it with some musical theater. It's going to be great.
I think it's remarkable to see friends and family who are not opera fans, particularly, interact from time to time with our operatic performances. Like my mother, I think the first full opera she saw of mine was in undergrad when I did Albert Herring, and then she didn't.
You did Albert Herring. I would love to see that.
Oh, it was a fun time. But she didn't see another opera, I don't think, until I was in Lindenwood, where she saw Exterminating Angel, also not an easy opera.
It's going to be great. You'll love this piece.
And then I loved Exterminating Angel. And then she surprised me because she's super into Arthurian legend. So I think she would say her favorite is she surprised me and came and saw Parsifal. And that she was over the moon about. But it's funny to hear the perspective of people who are not primarily opera people talking about issues that we do hash over in opera.
Yeah.
So you know, she really is strongly on the boat of if you can do it in English, you should do it in English. Because she really loved being able to actually understand and not look at super titles and really be in the action. Yeah. Which is sort of a fight we're having in opera, you know?
I tend to like I understand the desire, especially as a performer, to want to do it in the language. I get it. Hell, we spend a lot of time and it sounds right to us. Yeah. But like, because I have a foot in the opera world and then a foot in the blue collar world, when I do an English opera, the people that I bring, they are so much more engaged. Yeah. They understand what happened. They ask you like really salient, you know, questions. When I take them to an Italian opera, they miss like half the plot because they're not used to going back and forth.
Right.
And they're constantly, that's why I love doing English opera for an American audience, is because I know when the words come out of my mouth, it lands right on them immediately. 100%. There's no processing time.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They can really be in the moment. Definitely.
I think one of the more difficult operas that my poor parents have had to watch me in, you'll see why I'm saying this when I tell you what it is. In grad school, I did The Consul. Not an easy night at the theater.
No.
Certainly, probably not an easy thing to watch your daughter go through. You know, watch your daughter just like have everything taken from her and then kill herself at the end. So, you know, but they were in it, you know, like they don't have to, it's in English. They can just be there the whole time and understand it. And I will never forget my mother looking at my voice teacher because I had one more performance and saying to her, take care of her, please. Like, make sure she's okay. Because all of a sudden I was like, you know, I had been telling them like, hey, you know, this is a really tough show. I just want you to be prepared for that. My mental health has been, in grad school, when you're doing a show for 6 months because you're musically rejoicing it and then it takes forever to stage, it's like, oh, we've been living in dystopia for 6 months. Like,
so when I do pieces like Glory Denied or Dead
Yeah.
Man Walking, or For a Look or a Touch, pieces like that, where you're playing these characters that have just been, and it's something that's relevant. It has a cultural context for you because you're in the society about which these things are happening, or on which these things are based. And I find that like my mental health really, like, before I was just like, I'm just really methoded into it. But like I realized that, like, the longer I did it, that I really am like suffering along with these characters
Oh
sometimes.
yeah.
And
Oh
it really
yeah.
does it take a toll on you.
There's a
Yeah.
reason why Daniel Day-Lewis apologizes to his wife every time he wins an award. Can't imagine,
Yeah.
Yeah.
living in that for so long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With my wife, we've gone through this. Like I forgot what it was. She had to do a really intense role, and I was not booked at the time, so I was just there. Or I was there, but I was doing something small. And so I didn't have that much stress. And so I was kind of like, doop, 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 doop. And she was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and she was like, oh, I totally get it. Cause she didn't do a lot of that kind of stuff. She did a lot of what she calls children and magical creatures, because she's 5 feet tall and tiny. So she does a lot of kids and stuff, like, hey, I'm here. Doop, doop, doop.
That's beautiful.
Right.
And she was like, I understand like why sometimes you are completely dissociated and like completely just not here. You're here, but you're not here. And it's because I'm so attached.
And with all the stories like that, then just pile on the emotional angst that comes from COVID. I mean, it's been, I've felt horrible for so many of my colleagues, as well as, frankly, myself at times. But it's just like, I can't imagine. I mean, it's already sometimes tenuous to do our work in terms of mental health. We live like college students a lot.
Mm-hmm.
We're not anywhere. We're not in the same place for a very long time. I mean, like, there are days where I think my mom would get an aneurysm just seeing how much dirty clothes is on the floor.
Dude, my mom would. She walks in my kitchen right now. Oh, I'd be in so much trouble.
I know. We have to clean before my parents come this weekend, Ian.
You add on the emotional angst of, we're already living with the angst that comes along with not being certain about where our careers are leading us.
The best,
and that's during normal times.
Yeah.
And then you throw in this fact of like, I always figured if my career imploded as a singer, it would at least be my fault.
I didn't expect the entire industry to collapse. This is
exactly
unexpected. I would just like it. I don't mind it if it's my fault, but if it's some bullshit like national disaster, that's nonsense.
Well, like I know Ian and I have had conversations about this because in addition to being friends, we're also living together this summer. So we have all kinds of conversations, and I know we're all really glad to be working again, right?
Yeah.
But I think it still has come with emotions that I don't think any of us anticipated at the same time, like the difficulty of reentry and what putting this life back on is like, and the uncertainty of a different type of uncertainty with still more uncertainty all around it, even more than there ever was. And what is it like to be away from home? And what is it like to be away from your people again? And,
I had a real hard time with reentry. I really did.
Yeah. I think we all have.
It was like the time when I was really like on the road for 2 months, and Megan had left a month before that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like 3 months by myself. I don't like it, man.
It's really hard.
I really enjoyed being in a community and being around people I loved.
Yeah. And I live alone in DC, and my partner is long distance. And so, it's like counting the days, counting the months, watching them all. And like, I thought the loneliness of COVID was a lot. And somehow this is sometimes even feels lonelier, just that feeling. I mean, Cooperstown is pretty remote, and I know there's a lot to do with it because of that. But it's wild to feel lonely surrounded by people and surrounded by friends. And that's kind of unfortunately part of the reality of what we do.
I think sometimes you're even afraid to talk about it like that, like because you are maybe seen to be ungrateful.
Yes.
I mean, there's a lot of problems in our industry, and I've been, kind of fighting for things that I actually, feel like I have the power to change, not so much these things that are sort of more nebulous, but things that I know that I can like change. I'll try to do what I can. But yeah, it's just like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. They feel like champagne problems, but
Yeah.
they're
I'm
still
afraid
problems.
to, like, I would say, like, well, this, and people are like, well, at least you have work. Like, what are you complaining about? It's like,
Exactly.
Well,
now I
what
can't
with the
talk to
Delta variant? I'm not even certain that's going to be. Now with all the Delta variant goes, I'm like, what is my fall going to stick around?
Oh, dude,
Yeah.
like this year, I'm having so much pandemic PTSD from,
Oh my God.
like, and seeing those numbers rise. I'm like, please no, please no. Number one, I mean, not just for me, because I love doing this and I don't really know how to do anything else, but just for the industry. Like, I felt like, before the pandemic hit, there were a lot of things that are trends and things in our business, moving more into new works and people really getting passionate about them, that I would be so afraid that those risks that we took before the pandemic, that everybody gets risk averse and they just go back to the ABCs. I'm so concerned about the future of the art form, because I really believe that the future of the art form has a lot more to do with new works and developing composers of our time.
Yeah.
I love the museum pieces. Don't get me wrong; they're fantastic. I make money doing that, and I use that money to do the new pieces. It's like,
right.
But I hope that as an industry we don't say, okay, let's just go with the safe stuff and make easy choices.
Well, that's the kind of wild thing of looking at the season that's hopefully coming. And like just looking across the country and saying like, okay, so everybody's doing this show, everybody's doing that show, everybody's doing this show. Didn't we all just do flute? Like everybody's doing flute again.
Starring the same 12 people. Yeah. Welcome to Apple Wine.
Totally wild.
Man. Well, guys, this has been a great conversation. Thank you guys for taking the time today.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed getting to know you guys and hearing your work. I haven't heard Ian yet, but I will, because I'm going to miss that concert for nothing.
Come to the Wagner. And you sound fantastic on the music theater.
Thanks, dude. Appreciate it.
And on Trovatore.
I haven't heard it yet. I'm coming.
Right. Actually, no, the best thing probably is Songbird. I mean, that is iconic.
Definitive.
Truly.
Nobody will ever touch the God again.
No.
All right, gang. I'll see you around campus.
See ya.
Yeah.
All right, I'll see you.